In sales, we're professional communicators. We are trying to communicate the value of our product, help people understand the problem that we solve, and have them focus on what we want them to focus on. It's all about communication, yet nobody teaches us how to do this. Some of us develop it naturally. Some of it we practice. Some of it we actually put effort into it. Today we're going to be talking about that. How to communicate better, more effectively, how to connect with another person. This is critical for us in sales. If we just left it up to our company, we would get the marketing pitch, a bunch of buzzwords, a bunch of examples, maybe some questions even. But we might even get a little bit of training. But is it enough? Isn't it the person who communicates best? And this is a performance. And a lot of people misunderstand performance. They think it's singing and dancing. No, it's how well you are able to connect with another person. Now, if you don't look at it as a performance, you look at it as I either know it or I don't know it, and you come across dry or uninteresting, or you haven't built rapport or trust, then the other person doesn't listen, doesn't care. They get an internal emotion, an internal reaction, and they go with that. Now, if you're in the U.S., we've got an election going on, and the word that keeps coming up is who I like, not who I think is the best candidate, the most qualified, the most intelligent, the most thought out person. It's an emotional reaction. That's because we're mammals, and we think that everyone else is going to be able to read what we are saying. I posted a quote this week on LinkedIn that the biggest mistake salespeople make is they think that everyone else thinks like them. And that nothing could be further from the truth. Everybody thinks differently. And they have this little mammal brain that is giving reactions and responses and feelings. And do they like us? Do they like what we're saying? Do they like how you are making them feel? And you hear that a lot. You make me feel. Well, I can't make you feel. You are reacting to what I'm saying. You're reacting to what I'm saying right now. We're going to get into this, and it's so critical because that is what we're doing every day, all day. We are communicating. We are transferring an emotion to another person. And how well and effective we do that will determine how effective we are at sales. Now, we're going to get into it quite a bit in this episode, but one of the ways of affecting people is through video. Video is a lot more effective because it involves visual of the person, not just the words, the sound, and the initial reaction. You can have more control over that. That's why video email is so much more effective. That's why videos that I produce on LinkedIn are so much more effective. Even though LinkedIn doesn't give them as much visibility as a text post, people connect with it because they know, like, and trust me because they see me. They may not like me, but that's okay too. So check out Co-Video. Co-Video is the way to connect with other people through video email. Let's get into the interview. I'll sum up what's going on in the courses, give everybody an update on the one-on-ones and the office hours. Here we go with the interview. Hey, Scott, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Brian. Well, I'm a communication coach, and I help people gain clarity in their message so they can grow their influence with the right people, with the emphasis being on the right people, because as you know, we're not for everybody, and to build trust in the workplace. And as you know, it's so key in today's economy, the connection economy, that, I found I was 18 years in corporate before becoming a coach. And as you know, we want to have a sense of purpose. We want to be connected to the mission, be it of our business or the company that we work for. But what's also just as important is we want to feel connected to those we work with. We want to feel like, we can collaborate, support each other, and that when we speak up, that we're heard in a non-judgmental way that also influences and moves people when we need that. So, I found that, again, 18 years in corporate, and evolving into a coach, how could I make the biggest difference for people? What area or part of their career or business can I do that? And I found that this is the space that whatever your message is, here's how you have internal clarity on it, and then share it in a way that moves the right people.
And how'd you get interested in this?
Just seeing, well, two things. I love that question too. Number one, I used to struggle with public speaking tremendously. I would freeze in meetings. I would be so nervous that everything from shaking to my throat would close up to dry mouth, all those symptoms. And I went through that for years, Brian. And, I usually pushed my way through. Like if I had to lead a meeting or give a presentation, I did have a couple of instances when I was in my late 20s where, spectacles, where I froze in meetings and didn't get through it.
Yeah.
But then in my 30s, I was able to usually push through it. But I always felt like, this is not how it should be. I don't want to feel this way every time I know I need to speak up in a meeting or lead a meeting or give a presentation. So that's my desire to become a better communicator myself and not let fear paralyze me was one. And then the other is I was winding down my corporate career. I found that many people were lacking connection to their purpose or creating fulfillment in their life. And there's a lot of things, as you know, that we do to create fulfillment in the work that we do. And I wanted to focus on one. And that one is getting clarity in your message so that you can, again, like I keep saying, share it with the right people in the right way that's going to help you grow your impact.
Yeah. And is your focus on the message, or is your focus on the ability to be able to public speak? Just clearly public speaking, it's right above or below death on the fear scale.
It is. Yeah. I just actually posted a video on LinkedIn this morning on a segment I saw on the news yesterday about somebody was talking about how he helps people with public speaking because it's the number one fear in the world. But, I would say that my mission really is to help people communicate better and be great communicators every day. It's not just, can you get in front of a room and be a polished speaker? That's certainly a part of it. But it's really more about, who are you as a person? What's your mission? And knowing, Brian, that, we all evolved. Your mission could be different in a few years, but what's your mission currently? And how are you connecting with people in a way that, influences and moves them? Because we're not moved as human beings. We're certainly not moved by data and information and just chit chat.
Right.
We're moved by emotion.
Yes.
And by a feeling like, hey, if I work more with him or her, or if I hire them, or if I collaborate with them, my life or my business or my job's going to get a little better or a lot better. So I help people really build that emotional connection, whether it's in a one-on-one conversation or if you have to give a presentation in front of dozens or even hundreds of people. How do you do that in a way? And again, it's not about how articulate and polished you are. Those are nice things. Those are good things. You want to look good and feel good, but it's more about being your true self and conveying the message in a way that's going to connect.
And how do you do that? When you show up, what do you typically find?
Well, I think, it all starts within, right? We need to do work within ourselves first. And that's why, books are great. I teach workshops all the time, workshops and videos. But what we really do is we need to start within and ask ourselves, who am I now? And who do I want to be as a person? How do I want my life to look? What kind of impact do I want to be making on other people? And that takes a little bit, and it's fun work. For me, call me crazy, but I think it's really fun, and exciting to look within and discover these things about ourselves, and what experiences have shaped us, and then bring it in a way that's going to, affect people and elevate others. So there's 2 or 3 keys, going back to your question is, having clarity in what your story is, knowing what parts of your life, not a small or a large audience, they're able to show a little vulnerability, right? And they do that early on. They'll share a little story or a nugget or an anecdote from some time in their life that people in the room or the audience can relate to.
Yep.
So learn how to share some of your story, not all of it. Nobody needs or wants a big biography, right? But just share an anecdote or a portion of your story that other people in the room can relate to. And another big key, Brian, as we look within ourselves and gain clarity is what do you stand for? Ask yourself, what do you believe in so strongly that no matter what circumstances are going on around you, no matter how difficult or even great things are, you're going to stand for that no matter what. So that, because here's the deal, when people know that this is what you stand for, irrespective of circumstances or your own personal gain, they're going to gravitate to you. They're going to trust you more. That's why I say a lot of the work I do is predicated on growing your influence and building trust with people you work with. And when they see, they may not agree with you, they may not even believe in the same thing, but they know, hey, Scott, he really believes that we all deserve that fulfillment in our career. He may not do the same process I do, but he really believes we deserve to leave work every day extremely fulfilled. And it shows in his day-to-day behavior. The right people will gravitate to that. So be connected to your story, what shaped you, and know what you stand for and believe in so strongly that you're going to bring it out naturally every day.
So what I heard was that commonality, which builds rapport because it hits our mammal brain as we're now part of the same tribe.
Yeah,
right?
We want that.
Exactly, right? Because that's the first step. Without rapport, you don't have communication.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard all the general things, and so I don't need to give people a history lesson, but we're very social creatures, and the people who don't really need or want to connect with others are few and far between. And, it's one of the reasons I really believe this. I really believe that I'm in great position after 18 years in corporate. I also did 3 years of nonprofit and volunteer work, including a year in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, just strictly volunteering. And that was a great lesson because I saw a lot of people not only working hard, but doing amazing, meaningful things with no personal reward. They were there to either fix or help the lives of them and their friends, or they were there volunteering to give time and give back. And, when we're doing behavior and action like that, it's always, most of the time it's for and with others. I mean, you find very few people in life who go all in, who work hard, who dedicate themselves to something, and it only benefits themselves. We like to do stuff that brings value to other people.
Yeah.
So I really stress that, welcome that. Well, embrace that, know it and embrace it and say, I may have a great idea or I may be really talented in this area. And by the way, you totally deserve to get great value in return. Be well paid. If you get accolades publicly, if you're an influencer, great. But really what you're doing is something that's meant to help others and allow you to connect with other people. That's what we want.
Because what you're trying to do is have everybody work towards a common mission and get away from thinking that everyone's just out for themselves and playing Office Space.
Yeah. So can I mention something about that? I'm so glad you said that. So we're conditioned, as you know, between school and then when we get into a lot of traditional jobs. I can't speak for every industry, but I worked in tech and healthcare and school and a lot of jobs condition us to look out for ourselves, like you just said. Yeah. It's survival of the fittest. We're graded. We're judged based on performance. How well did we do in that work? How well did we do in that project? And then reviews, promotions, raises, bump ups, all is predicated on your individual performance. And I know where that comes from. I get it. But what I'd like to share and what I want to do after seeing this firsthand for so many years is how can we connect and collaborate on a level that we're looking to that common mission that you're referring to. We may, in some organizations, I hope this changes gradually over time. I'm certainly doing my best to help change it as I work with leaders and new managers and emerging leaders. But people may still be rated individually, but what can we do to have clarity in the mission and make sure, like you said, we're aligned and going in the same direction? And I always use, really quickly, I'll wrap that point with this. I use the sports metaphor of the football team. What a quarterback or an offensive tackle or a wide receiver or a defensive linebacker does, they all have different skills and they all do their job in different ways. But at the end of the game, did they not all have the same objective and mission of trying to win and beat their opponent? Yeah. So you can do things differently. You can have different strengths and skills, but you're moving in the same direction. That's how we want to look when we're part of a team. And that's even more leadership than communications, isn't it? Or communications is a huge part of it. No, you're right. They're both. They're both. And leadership and, I take my cues. I always like to acknowledge some of the great people I've learned great things from. And I love when Simon Sinek says, about leadership, that leadership is irrespective of what level we're at. You don't have to be in a position of authority to be a good leader. Anybody in an organization or in their life can lead. And we do that by looking out to the people to the left of us and looking out to the people to the right of us. You learn a lot of that by studying and working and spending time with the military. And it's the same thing in our jobs is, are we there in a supportive way for others? But the thing is, we show that we're there through our communication. So think of a little example, and we've thought of these moments before, but I'll just share it, to get it out there and drive home the point that you walk into a conference room a few minutes before a meeting, and you and one or two other people are there. And these days, we're typically looking at our phones. I did it many times. But how about we just spend a moment with some emotional labor and look the other person or persons in the eye and say, before the meeting starts, say, hey, how's it going? Yeah. How's that project you're working on? Is there anything that you need? Any help that you need, assuming that they're in the same group and there's some alignment there. And when we do those things and we communicate that way, where we show people we're genuinely interested in their well-being and not just ours, that's how people learn to trust us more. Yeah. And that's how we grow our influence, because we're just innately and through our everyday behavior, letting people know, we have your back. I have your back. I may have my role on this part of the team, but I also have your back and I have her back over there. That means a lot in today's world.
And what do you see leaders doing wrong in their communication? Are they just taking the buzzword compliant marketing speak and where it's too high level?
That's
we're a disruptor, a innovator, a next generation, and nobody knows what that means.
Well, I think there's a few things that people, go wrong or down the wrong path with. And, a couple of examples are where they just think that the information will suffice, where we just, I've learned that lesson as a coach. I'll be honest with you, Brian. I've done many videos on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and I realized that when you just share and tell people something, it's not really powerful. And I think a lot of leaders and people, and I've grown and I'm working every day to get better at, be it through storytelling or the story of others to share something that influences people. And I think leaders, what happens is in the traditional space, they're so enamored or caught up in, I have to get this done. I have to get this project. I have all these tasks. I have all these responsibilities. I've done workshops with leaders and managers who literally tell me, Scott, I don't have a moment. Like what you're saying is great, but I don't have a moment to sit down with my team and ask them how they're doing and what they need. I have all these other things to do. This is real world. So, it really comes to a choice of, if you're there in a position of leadership and you want to grow as a leader, are you making the time to spend, even if it's in very, very small segments, to understand where your people are coming from, what they need, and not just feeding them information, data, and telling them what to do? Right. We don't respond well to that. Yeah. And the other thing I'll just say really quickly in regards to that question is, I think it goes back to the survival of the fittest, is when people are saying, how am I going to look? Some of the worst bosses I worked for, Brian, you could tell, be it in a meeting, be it in one-on-one situations, or when they were just doing their everyday job, you can kind of sense that they were doing things in a way where they were going to look good in the long run, or it just made sure that, hey, my stuff's done. If you get yours done, okay. But if not, it's all right, because I'm going to make sure I'm looking okay. And that's another, it's very understandable. I empathize with it because I've been in high pressure situations a lot in the corporate world. But it takes strong mental strength to step back, even sometimes in short segments of 5-10 seconds, and other times like sleep on it for a night and say, what is the best thing I can do that's going to move the needle forward as a group and build trust? Yeah. And that's one of the things I share in my workshops and in my one-on-one coaching. Always ask yourself, before you do something, is this going to move us forward collectively? And will it enhance and build more trust, or will it chip away at trust? Yeah. That's a good way people can kind of measure if they're going in the right direction.
And what I've always seen is a CEO will pin executives against each other, hoping that competition will improve the quality. And what ends up happening is they become islands of activity, pointing the finger at the other person of who's doing it wrong. The classic one is marketing and sales, right? Sales says they don't get leads. Marketing says they're not following up on the leads. And they're both trying to campaign to have the other one fired instead of they're supposed to be working together, and they're working against each other.
Now that's a fantastic example. That's so true. I saw it in my corporate career many times. And I'll tell you one thing, Brian, a lot of my workshops, so real quick, the majority of people who come to two or three of my my regular workshops, it's number one, they have a high anxiety around public speaking. That's the number one reason most people come to a lot of my workshops. But the very next one, not far behind, is people who have to work with, share, and communicate with different audiences. Yeah. They're product managers, they're marketing people, or they're sales, and they work with technical people, they work with executives, they work with clients, and they're like, Scott, how do I share my message in a way that resonates with different audiences? On your point, and there's correlation here, I think a CEO or any leader who does that, who pits people against each other, obviously that's a mistake. What we want to do is enable and encourage people to support and empathize and learn about each other. And then in that process, you can really do things and be better at, delivering for them what they need. And the irony of all ironies is, and we know there's a lot of irony in society today, Brian, but the irony is when you do more for others as opposed to doing for yourself, you're going to benefit even more in the long run. Because when we're looking out like, how am I going to do, or I'm pitted against him or her, and I got to make sure I come out ahead, you might win a short-term battle, right? We've seen that. You might win the day, but you won't win the long game.
Right. And that's what trust is when you sense the other person cares as much about you as they do about themselves. That's pretty much the currency of trust.
Absolutely. And I always encourage people, no matter what level you are, this is a real quick, small example, is make the time to walk over to, assuming you're in the same building or complex or whatnot, when you can, or jump on the phone or a video call if you're not, and just ask somebody basic things like, how's it going? How is what I'm doing for you helping or not helping you? What can I do? Things like, what can I do better? And where else do you need help? When we ask very simple but genuine questions and we mean it, and then we listen, and I mean, it's really easy in today's world, Brian, to say, be a good listener. Listen.
What does that mean? Right. Yeah.
What does it even mean? A good listener has 3, 4, 5 questions. They're going 4 or 5 levels deep. We need to do that with ourselves. I'll give you a quick example, if you don't mind, is, when you have a tough meeting or a bad one-on-one with your boss and we're all pent up and like, that felt like crap. I hated that. A lot of times, and I did this for many years, we get home and instead of, sitting down and understanding where that feeling came from, we jump on Netflix, we go to the gym, we make dinner, we scroll social media, we talk to our significant other, and we forget it. And what happens is we just suppress it and put it aside. Yeah. But what you want to do is say, here's what happened in that meeting. Here's how I felt. And then ask yourself 2, 3, 4 times, why did I feel that way? And it's very revealing. And you want to do the same in principle anyway with other people. What I delivered for you really provided value or helped. Why? Or in what way did it provide value? Help me understand that so that I can do even more of that. Or maybe even, I can look at some different ways to deliver value to you. And I'm not saying you want to go around inconveniencing and taking up a lot of people's time, but just come from a place of authenticity, ask questions, and be engaged. Be present. Don't worry about saying the right thing. Worry or focus more, I should say, on asking questions that are going to enlighten you to how you can provide more value.
Yeah. And the other thing I heard, and I think is a key communication skill, is instead of telling, showing.
Yeah.
And what I've seen, either show through example, analogy, story. And this has been a game changer for me. I started making like these little skit videos that I post on LinkedIn, talking about a problem that I know how to solve, and that is funny. And I pretend I'm talking on the phone. So it is an example, a kind of story. The people are observing it. I'm not telling them that. I'm showing them how it goes. And then at the end, I sum it up.
Yeah, we learn much better from showing and seeing than we do being told, 100%. That's why stories work well. Stories, were the best storytellers, part of what they're doing is they're painting a picture.
Yes.
They're giving people something they can visualize in their head. The best authors and books do that, and the best speakers do that. And that's great that you do that in your work and videos. And I would say, for the audience, remember, the best communicators, and hence often the best leaders, they don't often need to say much.
No.
They don't. to your point, Brian, lead by doing, lead by showing people every day, and speak up where you need to. But the greatest communicators I know and see out there, yes, there are some people, especially because of the platforms, that are very out there. But most great leaders don't need to speak up that much.
Because when you tell somebody, you're putting all the onus on them to figure it out.
Yeah.
And unless they have a motive or a desire, it's too much.
100%.
Now, give us a sense of what people will get out of a workshop with you. What's the outcome?
So the outcome is there's a couple or a few things really important is steps to gain, because in 1, 2, 4, 6-hour workshop, you're going to have some more clarity, but not all, because I always tell people, whether I'm meeting with them one time or they're an ongoing client, this is a process and a system. It's a journey. It's not, there's never 1 or 2, 3 tactical steps that you do that all of a sudden flip the switch. You live it every day. And what I do is I get people pointed in the right direction. The most successful people in terms of, our interaction, moving forward from a coaching session or a workshop, are people who are implementing and taking things and putting them into their life almost like systems. Like, I'm going to jot down my ideas. I'm going to journal. I'm going to go 3 or 4 layers deep as to why I felt a certain way. But to keep it high level, it's gaining a little more clarity on where I want to go as a person, gaining more clarity on what my message is. And then, because there's steps and things you can do to get more clarity. Like for me, I could talk for an hour on communication, right? I mean, you and I could probably go another 30 minutes.
Easy.
But I need to often summarize and say, I help people gain clarity in their message so they can grow their influence and build trust in the workplace. Now, we don't all just need a short tagline, but what I'm saying is really get down to the simplified version of what your message is. And I help people do that. And the other thing I do is help spark with people. I flip the narrative. I help people flip the narrative in their head. And I'll give you an example. A lot of people go into meetings, and especially interviews, but even regular meetings at work. And what are they thinking, Brian? I hope the audience likes what I say. I hope this person interviewing me likes my answer. I hope they think I'm a fit. We want to turn that story around. That's a losing mindset. Right. And I'm not being critical. I had it for years. It's just what we want to do is flip it around and say, I have clarity on who I am. I have clarity on my story and my message. I'm going to share it in a way that brings value to the people in the room, are feeling like their life is going to get better by even if they just take one thing out of this. Yeah. And in the process, I'm going to help elevate the right people. And I'm not out to please or make everybody happy or make everybody like me. The right people will resonate with my story, my message, my mission. So it's a flip. I help people flip that narrative from, oh my gosh, I hope I look good in this presentation. I hope I sound okay. I hope I say the right things, to I'm simply going in with the clarity that I have in my mission, in my story. I'm going to share it in a way that brings value to them, and the right people will connect.
And this seems like a habit that you have to develop, something that, because people are consistent or they've been communicating in the way they have their whole life. And now they've got to kind of make it conscious and do it over and over again, so it becomes a habit and second nature instead of just focusing and telling people. How long does that typically take?
Well, I'll answer that part, but thank you for affirming what we're just talking about. That's the important part, is you can't just flip the switch and there's not like step 1, 2, or 3 and all has changed. You have to build these in as systems and habits, absolutely, and live it and believe it. That's why I say, having clarity, know what you're gifted and talented in, but I mentioned earlier, like, what do you believe in? And standing for that every day and knowing when to bring out your story in a way that elevates others. And that takes time and practice, not practice in a fake, contrived way, but just because you're living it every day. And Brian, I will say this, it took me over about a year to get from a 1 or a 2 to a 10. But here's the way I like to share it with people or paint the picture, is if you go from a 2 as a storyteller and as somebody who brings value in all your communications, you can go from a 2 to a 4 in a matter of a few weeks, right. Less than that. You can go to a 5, a 6. It's always a gradual improvement and journey for yourself. So never measure. I know you were just making a point and framing this great, but I always tell people, don't get hung up on, how quickly you become great or a great speaker. Just, you're going to continually get better at it so long as you believe in who you are and act out and carry out these systems and these habits every day, naturally. Of course.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because when you go from a 2 to a 4, that's 100% better.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Right. If it takes a year or to 5 years to get to a 10, that's fine. But every day you're becoming conscious of what you should be doing.
And I say all the time, I'm constantly learning. I'm always going to be learning for the next 30, 40 years. How do I communicate better? How do I elevate and lift others up? How do I grow my own leadership skills, both for leading myself and those around me? Never stops.
Cool. And where can people go to connect with you and learn more about your work?
I encourage people to either go to LinkedIn or Instagram for the most part. So find me on LinkedIn at Scott Stoltz or Instagram. I'm using Instagram. I was a big Facebook user for a while. And then, be it the nimbleness of Instagram or whatnot and the videos that I do, I'm on there almost every day. So if you want a little content and just to get a taste for how you can be a better communicator, check me out at Scott Stoltz. And I always encourage people to just message me. I love that. I'm certainly conscious of my time, but I love when people reach out to me and just ask, either around their anxiety or how can I share better or message better or what are your thoughts on this? And I always get back to everybody because this is really important. My mission is to help people be great communicators in whatever space they're in.
When we think of somebody who's great at communicating, is it really just what they say, or is how they connect with another human being? The words are part of it. How they say it. Are they using feeling words? Because that's how people communicate. That's how people understand. That's how people can relate. Are we telling somebody? Now, that is something that we do too often. We tell people who we are, what we do, and how it works. And that is interesting, but that's not why people buy. People buy to solve a problem that they have typically that they may not even know about yet. That's what great sales is all about. Our ability to do this, our ability to have conversations that engage people will determine how effective we will be at sales. Now, one of the superpowers in sales is having other people want to communicate with us, even if they don't need something. Now, that distinction is the distinction between the A and the B player. Being able to communicate with another person about what they care about and then build it into something that is relevant to what we do is an A-level skill. That's what I teach in Start the Conversation, Get the Meeting. Now, in this course, what you learn is how to connect with another person, how to build it up, how to become not a stranger, how to become known, liked, and trusted in a systematic way, and how to then become really good at having conversations with them about what they care about that turns into what you care about, not the other way around. Because if you want to know who cares about what you do right now, it's you. Everyone else is faking it. Sorry to tell you, spoiler alert. Now, if you're in the courses, make sure you're checking out the office hours. These are 1-hour meetups that we do every other week. I record them and put them into the course if you can't make it. There's a great deal of Q&A, but there's also case studies. I profile each buying persona. I articulate exactly how to speak to them, how to build up your process, and then how to automate it and even outsource it sometimes. It can become that effective. And the one-on-ones are 30-minute Zoom meetups with me, applying the course to your particular situation. Again, they're recorded and put into the course anonymously so that everyone can benefit from it. So we have case studies, we have real-world examples, and we have coaching in the course. You can't beat it. What else can you do? So go to b2brevenue.com, hit the training tab, and then check out the courses, and if you'd like, schedule a time with me. It's that simple. B2B, the letter B, the numeral 2, the letter B, revenue. That's my favorite word. Don't tell anybody. .com. And please don't send me emails. You got to go through the queue. I mean, people send me emails. Hey, when are you free? I go, I'm free when my calendar says I'm free. That's the way I have to streamline it. Otherwise, I get lost. People text me or email me. It's like, okay, you're not in the queue. Okay, you got to get in the queue. It's not hard. Got to get in the queue. Hey, I appreciate everybody listening to the podcast. Make sure you're telling somebody else about it. If you see my content on LinkedIn, just give it a like, a comment, and a share. Check out the YouTube channel, Maverick Method on YouTube. Check out the 2 other podcasts, Sales Questions, Brutally Honest Answers, and the B2B Revenue Leadership Show. That's it. We'll see you next time.